If your debt is in collections right now, that might actually be better news than you think. And it's not because it doesn't matter, it does, and quite a lot. But because where debt sits in the process, collections or recovery can change everything about your options. And most people don't know the difference until it's too late to use it. Here is what happens. Someone receives a call from their lender's collections team. They don't pick up, they don't respond to the letters. They tell themselves they'll deal with it later on. And by the time they do engage, the conversation has already moved somewhere else entirely. Not because the lender gave up, but because the account crossed a line. And once it crosses that line, the nature of what you are being asked to fix changes completely. Understanding where that line is and what exists on either side of it is one of the most practically useful things I can share on this channel. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Nova. I've spent over 15 years inside the banking industry as a credit risk professional. On this channel, I cover personal debt and lending through a risk lens, the side of the system most borrowers don't usually see upfront, but are always affected by. And everything I share here is purely for financial education and is not meant for personal financial advice. Now, there is one specific thing I want to come back to later in this video, something about how the conversation between a borrower and a lender changes completely depending on which side of that line they sit on. Most people don't understand this until they are living it. But we will get to it. But first of all, let's define the terms clearly. So, what is debt collection? Collections is the earlier chapter in the debt resolution journey. When an account falls behind on its repayments, whether that is one missed payment or a pattern of late payments building up, it moves into what lenders call debt collections. And the entire focus of collections is on one thing: getting the account back to a position of financial health. And that means catching up on the payments that are overdue, or basically what is called the arrears. Think of it like a health check. Your doctor notices your blood pressure has been trending in the wrong direction. Nothing critical has happened yet, but the signs are there. And the conversation is, what can we do now to prevent this from getting worse? That is exactly the collections mindset. And this is what most people miss about this stage. Collections is not punishment. It is the lender's attempt to catch the problem early, because early resolution is better for everyone. It is cheaper for the lender, faster to resolve, and it leaves you in a significantly better position. The lender would genuinely rather fix it here than have it move further on, which makes collection, as uncomfortable as it feels, the chapter where options are widest and consequences are also lightest. So let's now go to recovery. And recovery is a different chapter entirely. Recovery typically follows a formal default, the point at which a lender has determined that the account is not going to resolve itself through normal collections activity. And at this stage, several things have usually already occurred. The account has been assessed as defaulted, a formal default has been listed on the credit file, and in many cases, a formal demand letter has already been issued to the customer. The default listing on the credit file stays for 5 years. 5 years even after the debt is eventually paid. It's how credit reporting works. A resolved debt reads differently to an open one, but both are visible during that window. Now, this is the part I mentioned at the start, the part that changes everything. When an account moves into recovery, the conversation is no longer about catching up on the missed installment payments. The conversation is now about the full outstanding loan balance. And this is the shift most people do not see coming. And it's exactly what makes the difference between collections and recovery so significant. This is usually the point where people start to realize the difference between collections and recovery is not just a label. It is a completely different financial conversation. And the clearest way I can show you that is just with an example. Let me walk you through two customers. These are just illustrative examples, but they represent the real world difference clearly. Customer A is behind on their loan repayments. Their account is in collections. The conversation with their lender today is focused on 2,800 in missed installments. The question on the table is, can we bring the account back to current stage? Customer B is further along. Their account has defaulted. A default has been listed on their credit file. The conversation now is centered on the full 100,000 outstanding loan balance. The question on the table is, how does this entire balance get resolved? Not just the installments missed. Both customers can still have a conversation with their lender. Both customers still have pathways available to them. But the nature of those pathways and the weight of the consequences already in place are very different. Customer A has a problem they can still contain. Customer B has a problem that has already expanded. The default on customer B's credit file is already there. That is the consequence of the timing, not the conversation. So maybe we need to understand what moves an account from collections to recovery. And honestly, understanding what drives an account from one stage to the other matters a lot, because this is where timing becomes the most important variable. An account generally moves towards recovery when arrears reach a significant level and remain unresolved despite lender's contact. A default notice is issued, giving the borrower formal written notice and a 30-day window to respond. And if that window expires without resolution, a formal default is then listed with the credit reporting body. This can slightly vary based on the product, but can start as early as 60 days past due, though most common is 90 days past due. Each of those steps take time, and each of those steps is documented and regulated. The system does not move silently, which means the window to engage and to keep the account in the collections chapter is usually longer than people realize. And one of the things that can close that window is silence. And here's what to do with this information. Step 1, just know where your account currently sits. If you have received contact from your lender about missed payments, ask them directly. Is this account still in collections, or has a formal default been issued on this account? You have the right to know, and that answer shapes everything else. The second step is that if you're in collections, treat it as the window it is. Collections is the chapter where outcomes are most flexible. Hardship arrangements, payment plans, reduced repayment schedules, these conversations happen here more readily than anywhere else in the journey. And engaging now costs you far less than engaging later. And the third step is that if you're in recovery, you still have options. Recovery is more serious, but it's not the end of the conversation. Payment arrangements, even review of your hardship situation, can still be discussed. The credit file listing may already be in place, but a resolved debt reads differently to an unresolved one. Do not let the weight of the stage stop you from engaging. And the fourth step, get written confirmation of what you've agreed with the lender. Whether you're in collections or recovery, any arrangement, any deferral, any payment plan, it's better to get it in writing. This protects you and creates a clear record for both sides. And the fifth step is that if you're unsure or overwhelmed, use free independent support. And as I close, I just want to say that collections and recovery are not the same thing. They're different chapters in the same story, with different stakes, different consequences, and different conversations depending on where the account sits. The earlier you engage, the wider your options. That is not a rule I've made up. It's how the system is. If this gave you a clearer map of something that matters, share it with someone who might need it before they need it. And subscribe, because next week I will share with you a personal story involving a friend who incorrectly filled on application form and the consequences that were in waiting. That's one you'll want to see before you apply for credit again. Thank you.